Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. If you asked me a year ago, I would have told you my life was perfectly mapped out. I had a 5-year plan, color-coded spreadsheets, and a vision board that screamed success. But life doesn't care about plans. It's like a chaotic artist, splattering paint over your pristine canvas, just when you think you've got it all figured out. It started on a Tuesday, the kind of day you forget about the moment it ends. I had a presentation at work, something I'd been preparing for weeks. The promotion I'd been chasing for 3 years hinged on that pitch. I rehearsed every line, memorized every statistic, and even bought a new blazer to project confidence. This was my moment, my plan in motion. But then life happened. The phone call came as I was heading out the door. My mom was sobbing, her words fractured by gasps. "It's your dad. Heart attack. We're at Mercy Hospital." The words slammed into me, shattering the carefully constructed world I'd built. I dropped everything, the blazer, the USB drive with my presentation, even my purse, and bolted. By the time I reached the hospital, it was too late. He was gone. The days that followed blurred into a fog of funeral arrangements, condolences from people I barely knew, and a gnawing emptiness that no amount of planning could fix. My promotion, my career, none of it mattered anymore. How could it, when the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who cheered at every school play, was suddenly just gone? I tried to hold it together, but grief doesn't fit neatly into a planner. It seeps into the cracks of your life, warping everything it touches. My work performance plummeted, my friendships frayed, and my boyfriend, Tom, grew distant. "I just don't know how to help you," he said one night, his voice tinged with frustration. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him that I didn't need him to fix anything. I just needed him to stay. But instead, I nodded, too tired to argue. Then came the second blow. 2 months after my dad's death, I found a text on Tom's phone. It was from Lily, a mutual friend. The kind of text you can't misinterpret, full of winking emojis and inside jokes I wasn't a part of. Confronting him felt like stepping into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. He admitted it immediately, his guilt written all over his face. "It just happened," he said, as if that made it better. I walked out that night and never looked back. By then, my life was in freefall. I was a 29-year-old woman with no relationship, no family to lean on, and a career hanging by a thread. My boss, who had been understanding at first, started dropping hints that my grief wasn't an excuse to miss deadlines. "We all have our struggles," she said during one particularly brutal meeting. "The world doesn't stop for personal tragedies." She was right. The world doesn't stop. It keeps spinning, indifferent to your pain. I spiraled. Nights blurred into weeks, lost in a haze of cheap wine and Netflix reruns. My apartment, once immaculate, became a graveyard of takeout containers and unopened mail. I stopped answering calls, ignored texts from friends who were trying to pull me out of my pit. Then came the eviction notice. Apparently, forgetting to pay rent for 3 months has consequences. As I packed up my life into cardboard boxes, I felt like a failure. All those plans, all those dreams, they'd led me here, to this broken, hollow version of myself. But life wasn't done with me yet. A week after moving into a dingy studio apartment, I got an email from my mom. She was selling the house. "It's too big for me now," she wrote. But what she didn't say, what she couldn't say, was that it hurt too much to stay in a home filled with memories of him. I broke down reading that email. It was the final thread snapping, the last remnant of the life I'd known unraveling. That night, I decided I'd had enough. Enough running, enough wallowing, enough waiting for life to fix itself. If life was going to throw punches, I'd learn how to hit back. The next morning, I made a list. Not a 5-year plan, not a vision board, just a simple list of things I could do to take control. Step 1, get a job. Any job. I started waiting tables at a diner, something I hadn't done since college. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and forced me to interact with people again. Step 2, therapy. It was awkward at first, spilling my guts to a stranger. But slowly, it helped me untangle the knot of grief, betrayal, and self-doubt that had taken root in my chest. Step 3, Forgive myself. This was the hardest part. I'd spent so much time blaming myself for everything. For not being there for my dad, for not noticing Tom's betrayal, for letting my life fall apart. But life isn't a series of perfect choices. It's messy and unpredictable, and sometimes it just happens. A year later, I'm not the person I was. I'm stronger, scarred, but healing. I'm not chasing some idealized version of happiness anymore. Instead, I'm learning to find joy in the small, unplanned moments, a stranger's smile, the smell of fresh coffee, the way sunlight filters through my window in the morning. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And maybe that's the point.